Jump Force, a love letter to shonen manga, or a cash grab of nostalgia? Let's find out. It's the second one. I went into this game pretty open-minded despite the mediocre reviews. My hope was that after a year of the game being released, that this game would have been fixed in a way, given the original reviews, while mediocre, weren't that bad. One of my biggest disappointments is that it feels like there wasn't a love or an effort put into crafting and combining these worlds in a cohesive and fun way. Obviously, I must emphasize that this is a feeling because honestly, I don't think any developer or team of developers go into making a game hoping to make something soulless. And there is a lot of things that could have gone wrong during development, but we are here to review the product that we did receive, regardless of any of those things that might or might not have happened. I will start with the story, which I think gives good context to what I'm feeling. In the story of Jump Force, characters of shonen manga are transported to the real world, which sounds like a fine idea until you realize it means most of the stages will be real life locations over the locations in the manga. In fact, the only stages that come from the manga are from the 3 main series, and even then, each one of those series only has 1 or 2 maps in the whole main story, and every other map is loosely based on real life locations. These 3 series are obvious. It's probably the most famous shonen series of all time: Dragon Ball, Naruto, and One Piece. And these series are the ones that get the most attention, having 6 characters from each franchise, with the 2 closest franchises with 4 characters each being Bleach and Hunter x Hunter, while every other franchise only has about 1 or 2 characters, and those characters' choices being first the main character, and if there is a second character, being the main villain or one of the main allies. Which makes sense. Those are the characters people would want the most, but it's also very limiting, and DLC does not help here, as most of the DLC characters, for the most part, only add for the franchises that already have the most support. So if your interest in this game isn't really focused on the bigger franchises they choose to support here, it becomes a hard bargain to sell. Also, there are very little female representation in this game. There are only 3 female characters in the base game, which, given that this is all about shonen series, it's to be expected to some extent. But I still wish there was more, because it's not like these franchises don't have them. But I'll be honest, all of this hardly matters when all the characters act so blandly. Shonen characters are some of the loudest out there in media, and they just don't feel like themselves here. They talk like borderline low effort crossover animations that you see on YouTube, where characters, rather than acting like themselves, all they do is announce the situation that they're in. The most you'll get out of these characters is a whole lot of "Datebayo" by Naruto, of course. It doesn't help that most of the game isn't voice acted, and that during the battle all you get is grunts, which is normal for this type of one-on-one fighting game, but given the setting, it would have been nice to see banter between these characters. I will take this opportunity that we're talking about characters to move on to the graphics, where the game looks great until you start looking at it for more than 5 minutes. The maps themselves are fine, again largely uninspired, mostly because of what they're based on. It's with characters and their animations and attacks that things start to crumble. This is weird because I'm about to make another YouTube reference to explain something in a review, but if you ever watched one of those videos where someone will just put a character model in Unreal Engine and it looks great purely on a graphical standpoint, but it also has no art direction, like they just put Mario in the real world and that's it. And ironically, this is a Unreal Engine game, so Nintendo hired this man. But that's how this game feels. I know that it's supposed to look like that because there are manga characters in the real world, but I feel like the choice was made because it was easier rather than because they wanted these characters in a real world setting. Emphasis on feels. The animations are very awkward. Another problem of bringing this into a realistic world. I mean, Naruto running looks just as silly in the game as if I did it. And special attacks are just kinda Unreal Engine effect dumps. Again, with Naruto, sorry for me using Naruto so much out of the three main franchises. I'm most familiar with this one. And what I was saying was, the Rasengan here is just a ball of light to the point where I know what I'm looking at, what it's supposed to be, but I also know this isn't what it should look like. And overall, special attacks just lack that level of detail and spectacle to make them cool to watch the first time, let alone multiple times. And now the thing that could put all of these negatives to rest if it is good, and that's the gameplay, the most important part of this type of game. And here it's okay. I'm not a big fighting game guy, but I have enjoyed this type of 3D one-on-one fighting games, and personally I really enjoy the Ultimate Ninja Storm series, and this feels bland. I found that for the most part you are either completely owning the enemy or being owned yourself. It's very easy to make combos, completely clean someone's health bar. There are powers you can give yourself and customize to give yourself more health or strength or others, and these serve to balance that out a bit more, but given the way the game is built, they hardly affect it. But these small changes were surprisingly noticeable in the gameplay. And like I mentioned before with the animation, there just isn't that spectacle to make fights exciting, and so the story becomes repetitive even if you get to play as quite a varied setup of characters. The main character is technically you. This is one of those games. You have a character creator, and that's okay. It's not the most detailed, but it's also not the least detailed one. But the game lets you mix and match even gendered clothing, so it does give some nice freedom and also some amusing results. For example, by the end of the game my character looked like some sort of femme fatale Yugioh, which I found amusing. You can also equip your character with different abilities from the popular characters and mix and match them. So, for example, again, I was running a mixture of Yu-Gi-Oh and My Hero Academia moves. And much like everything in this game, the three main franchises get the most moves. And it's important to say that not all clothing is available in the same place. Each one of the three main locations within the main hub have their own unique clothing. These three main locations are matching with the three main franchises, as you'll have to pick one of them to create a sort of team, and this will mostly affect who you go to battle with in the main story. But it isn't as simple as if you like one show, you join their team, as thankfully characters are fairly mixed around, and so you don't feel locked to one of these franchises during a playthrough, but you actually play as other team characters in the story as well, so making this team's system being somewhat useless, I thought. Not that it matters, as the story missions are really bland and repetitious. You will keep on fighting the same enemies over and over again, since there is a very small roster of villains, and you also be fighting these generic enemies, which make it extra worse. They do find ways for you to fight the virtuous characters, so to say, with some really generic, like they're possessed or evil clones type of thing, but this only happens far and far between. Overall, the campaign is just not engaging to play all the way through. Challenge wise, well, I found it challenging, but I'm also not good at this type of game, so take that as you will. And again, there were times where I was just completely owning characters and other times when they were owning me. It's hard for me to talk about balance because it's not something I can really talk about in depth, but I don't feel like it was balanced to me. And overall, this whole game feels mediocre. And the 1 year time it's been around, it doesn't seem to have changed much, so unfortunately I cannot recommend this one. If you are a big fan of the franchises here, they all have their own unique personal games that are much better. And the one thing this game has over those games, the crossover aspect, doesn't feel done well at all. So yeah, that's been it. And here's another review. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe didn't because you like this game, I don't know. No one forces you to like anything. But I hope you did, so I can do is hope. And please subscribe and maybe like and comment because that's a thing you can do. And have a good day, and I hope to see you in the next video because that helps too. Peace.